G'day, guys. I think we're live. Welcome to the February 5 edition of the What to Watch For Fantasy Basketball Pregame Show. That's a lot of words. I'm Adam King. I'm going to be hosting today and probably every Friday, I think. We should be able to get through this in 15 to 20 minutes, I hope. I am actually writing player blurbs at the moment, so a bit of incentive for me to get through this pretty quickly. I normally have someone doing a podcast with them who can rein me in a little bit because I do tend to talk too much probably. But I'll try and rein myself in today. So before we jump into the games, this is, of course, a HoopBall presentation or a HoopBall presentation. And we would really appreciate if you could give this a thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find a lot of our videos and podcasts all up there with a ton of information. Jumping over to Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at AdamKing91, which is that way there, and also follow HoopBall Fantasy on Twitter. So that's actually probably the best place to get player information, breaking news, that sort of stuff. All the player blurbs that I'm writing this morning go straight up onto Twitter, and we try to get that information out really quickly. So what we're going to be doing, just to, as I said, keep myself in check and keep rolling through the show, I've just made myself a list here with a few players from each game tonight. There are 9 games tonight, so I'm just going to work through the games and quickly touch on a couple of players that I'm keeping an eye on for whatever reason. Now, of course, there may be some late injury news that comes out which will impact some of these players, but if anything comes up during the show, I'll try and catch that as well. So the first game we're going to start with is the Bulls at the Magic tonight. So the Bulls are without Otto Porter. He's actually been ruled out for what they're saying is indefinitely. So that his back is obviously causing him some issues. It was something that was going on earlier in the season, and he did manage to squeeze in a few games there, but didn't play particularly well. So it's obviously an ongoing thing. So with him out, we're keeping a bit of an eye on Patrick Williams. The Bulls do like him. He hasn't really broken out yet, but the minutes are there, and so I think just watching and monitoring his progress is worthwhile. And then, of course, Thad Young, who's been really good the last few games. The assist numbers are oddly high, but maybe that's just something he's never had a chance to do before. So look, Thad Young is someone, he should be rostered everywhere at the moment. So even once Wendell Carter's back and Otto Porter's back, I think they have to find minutes for him given his play. So they're the Bulls guys that I'm watching. For the Magic, it's Cole Anthony, for no real reason other than I think it's just interesting to watch his progression as the starting point guard. When he first sort of hit the news when Markelle Fultz went down with his injury, he was a player that we added in the hope that he would develop and sort of improve his game over the coming weeks, and I think that's something he has done. So he should be rostered in most leagues, but it is just interesting to monitor him and see how he's developing. And Chuma Okeke is another guy that I'm watching. So with Aaron Gordon out, we have James Ennis and Gary Clark starting and playing more minutes, but I think Okeke is the guy that they want to try and find more minutes for. So while he's not a guy that I'm particularly adding at the moment, just throw him on your watch list and monitor him. He is working his conditioning up and that sort of thing. So someone else to watch. So the second game today is Pelicans and Pacers. So for the Pelicans, Bledsoe is a guy that I've picked up off waivers in a couple of leagues. He's been better of late, still not great. But the really interesting aspect, I haven't sort of dug in to see how many games this goes back, but I know it's been quite a while since he's had a steal. And he's a player who we've sort of known for basing his game and his value is on his defensive productions. So that's not happening at the moment. So I'm hoping that is something he can turn around. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the other player that we're watching. He's been getting pretty good minutes, even though Lonzo Ball is back in the lineup. I think he only played about 20, 22 the last game, but they have fluctuated between sort of 20 and 30. And sort of on the topic of steals, he's actually a player who has been able to rack up some steals. So someone else worth watching and just seeing where his role goes over the next few weeks. For the Pacers, it's TJ McConnell, who's probably the best streamer available at the moment in terms of assists and steals. He had 12 assists in his last game, and he's sort of averaging 1.5 to 2 steals a game and upwards of 6 assists as well. So his minutes are really solid, which is something that he's had an issue with in the past. So it's good to see him carving out that role. And I mean, to be honest, the team looks really good with him out there running the show. So, and Jeremy Lamb, again, he's just someone who's probably rostered in most leagues, but just someone I'm interested to keep an eye on to see how his production goes. He's been really good since he came back from his injury. He's looked healthy. Didn't play a lot in the last game, but it was a blowout, so I wouldn't read too much into that. But let's just keep an eye on him. Bucks play the Cavs next. For the Bucks, there's generally not a lot that we want to be watching. Dante DiVincenzo is a guy that was sort of hyped up during the preseason, and he's been good, but he hasn't been great. He did have a decent game last up scoring wise, but the defense wasn't there. We need him to put both together and sort of bring both ends of the court together for him to actually hit his peak. So just someone, I'm not dropping him. I have seen him dropped. And so at the moment, it's sort of hard, I guess, to preach or to justify holding him. But I think the upside is there, especially on the defensive end. So worth holding on to. And Bobby Portis is another guy who surprisingly has been a top 100 player this season. We've seen him do these sorts of things before, and it's generally been the playing time that's been the issue. The Bucks do have a habit of blowing teams out, though, so his minutes have been fairly consistent, and he will give you good numbers, points and scoring wise. So another player to keep an eye on. For the Cavs, we haven't got word yet on whether Colin Sexton will play. He has been listed as questionable. I'm just going through Twitter. No, okay, so it's just come out. He will play. So Sexton is going to play. So my players to watch were sort of related to that. But if he's on the floor, then I think we just sort of monitor him and see. Keep an eye on his health and whether he plays his normal allotment of minutes tonight. Isaac Okoro is just the other guy that I'm watching. They seem to like him, and he's getting really good minutes. His offensive game is obviously something that's a work in progress, so not much to see on that end of the floor, but it's really the defensive end. So hopefully he can keep racking up those steals, and a little bit like TJ McConnell, he's another player to stream in if you need some defensive production. The next game we have is Raptors at Nets. So this is actually a pretty interesting one on the Raptors side. So Chris Boucher has obviously been talked about a lot in the last couple of weeks after his mini sort of breakout. Nick Nurse has reined him back into less than 20 minutes a game, which has been really disappointing. Tonight, he will be up against potentially Jeff Green. Primarily, they do have DeAndre Jordan there, but they have been giving Green the bulk of the minutes at center there. So this could be a good opportunity for Boucher to actually see some decent minutes. Aaron Baines is questionable or probable, I believe, with an injury. So I mean, it sounds like he's going to play. I don't think we have any word yet on whether he is playing. So yeah, look, I mean, if Baines doesn't play, then Boucher obviously gets a huge bump. But yeah, we'll just keep an eye on that matchup tonight. It could be a favourable one for him. Also, just keeping an eye on Norm Powell as well. He's been really good since moving into the starting lineup. Anunoby is out. So I think Powell starts again, and he's a must-roster player at the moment. And for the Nets, it's Jeff Green. I mean, we've got the big three. We know what they're doing. Joe Harris is hitting his threes. We know what he's doing. So it's really that center rotation and just keeping an eye on whether the Nets try to keep Boucher off the floor, and so perhaps they don't play Jeff Green as much and give DeAndre Jordan some more minutes because they think that he might have the advantage over Baines there. So, yeah, just watching how those rotations play out tonight will be interesting. Next game is Wolves at Thunder. For the Wolves, it's Vanderbilt. I've put it on Twitter a couple of times. It's pretty frustrating that that they're not giving him minutes. He looks to be... He looks comfortable out there, and he does. I mean, some of his decision making is a little bit questionable, but the Wolves are terrible anyway. So I don't know why they wouldn't have him out there. And his rebounding is really good. He's racking up those defensive stats. So look, I mean, it's pretty frustrating, and it's hard to justify holding him given what we've seen. But maybe tonight's the night. Fingers crossed it does happen, but I wouldn't sort of be holding my breath. Anthony Edwards is another player who, for the Wolves, who they should be giving minutes to, and they are giving minutes to him, so that's good. He's a little bit inconsistent, but he's been better the last few games. I picked him up last night in a league, so I'm hoping that he can keep things going. For the Thunder, I had Theo Maledon written down, but he's been ruled out due to health and safety protocols, so we don't really have any word on exactly what that is, whether it's unlikely he's tested positive. It's probably more to do with sort of an acquaintance of his or someone he lives with or whatever it might be who has tested positive, or so it'll be contact tracing related. So we're not watching Theo Maledon. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of Kenrick Williams, and Hamidou Diallo. I would say that it looks as though the Thunder only have 8 players available for tonight's game. So, I mean, there's potentially this could be a game that's called off if someone gets injured or they have someone else sort of have to sit out due to this health and safety protocol. So yeah, it's sort of a whole watch this space for that game. Wizards will play the Heat next. For the Wizards, I mean, we know what Beal's doing. We know what Westbrook's doing. So for them, it's really that center rotation that I'm keeping an eye on. We had some Mo Wagner hype about a week or two ago when he had a really strong game, but the minutes haven't been consistent. It's a bit of a mess, that center rotation. So it's hard to pinpoint who you should be targeting, and I don't think the Wizards really know who they're going to play from one night to the next. So it's probably more about the matchup and who's got the hot hand, who maybe isn't in foul trouble, that sort of thing. So just watching, keeping an eye on the minutes there, seeing if we can pull any information out of what they do tonight, and sort of translate that into value going forward. For the Heat, Tyler Hero, he's been pretty good. I mean, we know Jimmy Butler is back now, so Hero, his peripheral numbers tend to drop off a little bit when Butler's back. So the scoring has been pretty good, but we'd like to see him getting some more rebounds and assists. And Kelly Olynyk is a guy that I've sort of preached a lot of patience with, and trying to get him, get people to hold him just until the Heat are back to full strength, which they almost are now. And he's looked a little bit better. So Myers Leonard is out for the season. We know that. So there's minutes there for him. He hasn't really hit that 30-minute mark for quite a while. So look, maybe tonight's the night. But yeah, just monitoring what he can do, and we know he can go off. And when he does go off, he tends to do it for a week or so. So just keeping an eye on his production and looking for that explosion. We've got Jazz and Hornets next. Jazz, like the Bucks, they're not that exciting when it comes to fantasy. Royce O'Neal has been pretty good this season, surprisingly. He doesn't sort of blow you away anywhere, but he has been a top 100 player. So he's someone to at least consider, especially in roto leagues. He's not going to hurt you anywhere. He gets really good rebounding numbers, and the scoring is a bit up and down. So not a great points league guy, but for roto formats, he can be a sort of a solid enough pickup. Bogdanovic, who has been, I mean, it's fair to say he's been pretty disappointing this season. He's looked a little bit better the last few games. So let's see how he goes tonight against the Hornets, see if he can keep that going. I have mentioned a few different places that I think Clarkson is sort of the preferred player out of the two. And I think that's sort of reflected when you look at the percentage of people that have him in their team and that sort of thing. I'm seeing Bogdanovic pop up on waivers, whereas Clarkson, you don't see him at all. So he's generally rostered everywhere. For the Hornets, Miles Bridges will be starting again, I would say. Washington is out, and so Bridges, we know what he can do. He's inconsistent again, but he's got a chance at the moment to carve out a pretty good role. So he's a player I'm just watching, and Malik Monk is the other guy. So he went for 34 or 36 a couple of games ago, and then last game he had about 10 or 12, I think, from memory. So he cooled off, which was predictable, but again, those minutes are there for him. Rozier could be back tonight, so that will obviously have an impact on Monk and how much floor he sees. I don't think we have any official word on Rozier yet. I'm just having a look. So we have got some sort of confirmation there so the Thunder will have 8 available players tonight. So it looks like that game will go ahead. And just jumping back to the Heat there quickly, Kendrick Nunn could re-enter the rotation tonight. So with Avery Bradley set to miss 3 to 4 weeks with his injury, maybe Nunn can work his way back into some sort of role. I don't think it's going to be a standard league role, but if you're in deeper formats, we know he can score sort of 12 to 15 points in a hurry. So he could be someone that you just take a flyer on there. So we have got also the starting lineup for the Thunder tonight. So they are starting both Hamidou Diallo and Kendrick Williams, Isaiah Roby, Darius Baisley, and Al Horford. So it's an odd lineup, but they don't really have much choice. So Williams is an interesting one. We know he's probably not going to score a lot, but we know he can rack up other stats. So if he's getting upwards of 30 minutes, he's a guy to just maybe take a bit of a flyer on today. Jonas Valanciunas saying that he will be available for the Grizzlies next game as well. So that's a little bit off topic. Aaron Baines is a game time decision. So no official word on Baines yet. Those with Boucher are probably hoping that maybe Baines takes the night off, but I guess we'll wait and see what happens there. So we'll jump. Only 2 more games to go. We've gone probably over time a little bit, but it hasn't been too bad. So Pistons and Suns. For the Pistons, Jelon Wright, he's always a player that I'm watching. He's been really good. I mean, if you drafted him, you shouldn't have drafted him for his scoring. So you've got to be happy. I mean, his steal numbers have come right up in the last 2 weeks, which is what we wanted to see. He gets good rebounds. Assist numbers are fine. So he's someone that has to be rostered, but I have seen him dropped in a few places. So if that's the case, go and get him. He shouldn't be floating around on waivers. Josh Jackson had a little stretch at the beginning of the season where he had some value, and then he sort of got an injury and faded out. But look, Blake Griffin looks cooked. Doesn't really look interested. So Josh Jackson has been much better the last couple of games. So he could be someone that's worth picking back up just to see if he can keep this momentum going. We haven't seen sustained value from him throughout his career. So it's not something that we're sort of certain is going to happen. But maybe he can get things going. For the Suns, Crowder is doubtful, I think. So Cam Johnson is the guy that I'm watching here. He should be able to play really good minutes. And again, not a huge amount of upside in terms of statistical, I guess, variance. He will score. He'll hit threes. He'll get some rebounds. It would be nice to see some defense as well if he's going to be playing good minutes. And then final game is Celtics and Clippers. So for the Celtics, Jaylen Brown is out tonight, but Peyton Pritchard is back. So he's the guy that I'm watching for sure. With Marcus Smart also out, Jeff Teague, again, he doesn't look good at all. So Pritchard, he's going to have his minutes monitored, I would say, just because he's coming off not a significant injury, but it was a 2-week injury. So, he's probably not going to come in and play 30 minutes or anything like that. But he was really good before he went down with his injury. Before Kemba came back, he basically established himself as the backup point guard. So I think I would probably be, if you've got a roster spot there, I would probably be grabbing Pritchard. Tonight might not be the night that he sort of hits his peak, but he's going to have an opportunity over the next 2 weeks until Smart is back. So, look, we've got a comment there. 40-point game for Tatum, maybe. It's not like they have a lot of other players that can score. Their center rotation is a bit of a mishmash, but none of those guys are going to score more than about 15 points generally. So, Tatum could have a big night tonight. Clippers, who am I thinking of? Paul George is questionable, so we're not sure whether he's going to play. Again, they don't play till much later in the night, so we're probably not going to get word on his availability. I'm just reading about Aaron Baines here. Still nothing. So we're not going to hear about Paul George till later in the night, I wouldn't think. So generally lineups have to be locked. It makes it tricky when it's a later game. But Marcus Morris is the guy there. If Paul George is out, Marcus Morris may come into the starting lineup, and we know he can put up decent production when he gets 30 minutes. So just keep an eye on that. And Reggie Jackson, again, Pat Beverley is out. We don't have any word on when he will be back, and they're going to be pretty careful with him, given his sort of injury history and he tends to re-injure himself quite easily. So they're going to make sure he's right before he comes back, as much as they do need him back. So Reggie Jackson is a player. I mean, again, he's probably rostered in most formats, but if he is floating around, just pick him up and sort of tack him on the end of your bench until we're at a point where Beverley is coming back, and then you just drop him. So I think that covers everything for today. I will quickly just jump into Twitter and see if we've got any more news. No, I think we're pretty on top of everything at the moment. So we've got about half an hour till the first games tip off. So keep an eye on Twitter. So if you follow me at AdamKing91, but following at HoopBall Fantasy as well. So as I said, that's where all the player blurbs go up. So that's a really good sort of a one-stop shop for getting all this information leading up to tip off, and player injuries, ins and outs, and that sort of thing. So look, that's going to do it. I'll get back to the blurbs. We will be back. I think Dan might be hosting a show on the weekend. We're not exactly sure of what day that will be exactly, but I'm fairly certain that I'll be doing this every Friday. Look, it'd be great if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So that's it from me. I will see everybody next Friday. Thanks, guys.